What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Arrival Entertainment. Well, now that Halloween Ends is out and it's doing pretty good at the box office, it's time for me to rank all 13 movies in the entire Halloween franchise. Just like always, this list is just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people have very different opinions on each entry in the Halloween franchise, so let me know in the comments section at the end of the video how you would rank the franchise, and keep in mind that there might be some spoilers mixed in this ranking video. With that being said, let's get started. Starting out at the bottom of my list is Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, for the past two ranking videos that I've done for the Halloween franchise, Halloween Resurrection has always been on the bottom of my ranking. However, this time around, I had to put Halloween 5 at the bottom of my list because I really did not enjoy it this time watching it. And that's maybe because I learned a lot more about the behind the scenes issues that this film had, and it really soured my viewing experience for this film. It feels like the cast and crew, they got along with each other, but besides that, it feels like no one wanted to make this movie. The director changed things just for the sake of changing things. He really felt like he had no idea what to do with this story. The filmmakers completely ignored the ending of Halloween 4 with Jamie Lloyd being consumed by the evil of Michael and then attacking her mother. The film has some of the most forgettable and annoying characters in the entire series. Tina. Excuse me. Look, I'm sure the actress who played Tina is super cool and a really nice person, but her character Tina, I just cannot stand her. And for some reason, this viewing experience grated on my last nerves of her character the most. They tried to set up this thing with this character dressed in all black with no real outcome of what they were doing. The director literally just said, they'll figure it out in part 6. The film is just lazy and boring. And for some reason, this time around, it got on my last nerves, and I really did not enjoy Halloween 5 this time around. So I'm done talking about Halloween 5. It's not good. It's right now my least favorite in the franchise. Let's move on. Next at number 12 is Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers. Now, in all honesty, Halloween 5 and 6 could interchange as my least favorites, but I put Halloween 6 above. It's just very slightly above, if anything, Halloween 5, because I really don't know why. I think it's because Halloween 5 really didn't have a plot. It's seriously a movie about nothing except for the Man in Black stuff, which was supposed to be resolved in this film, but it just became more convoluted. But Halloween 5 basically had no plot and was very boring. I'm never bored with Halloween 6, even though it's a terrible movie. The point of Halloween 6 is to give answers that were never answered at the end of part 5. And they did that, but they did it in a very messy and convoluted and not good way. They tried explaining Michael Myers' origins, saying that he's being controlled by this cult that makes him kill his family on Halloween whenever the constellation of the thorn symbol appears in the sky. It's very, very messy. And it's not necessary. Okay, I get the appeal that some people have of wanting some answers on why Michael Myers kills, but it just takes away from the mysteriousness of him and just ultimately isn't needed. And that's one of this film's biggest problems. It crams this convoluted story that just doesn't feel necessary. Not to mention all the behind the scenes drama that this film had that really sours my watching experience of the film now. I mean, the only good things that came out of this movie is Paul Rudd. I mean, this is Paul Rudd's first movie, and he's pretty good in the movie. I'm not gonna lie. Some people say he's kind of wooden a little bit. I don't see that at all. I think he's pretty good in the film. And there's a couple of cool death scenes too, but Halloween 6 just doesn't do anything for me. And there's two cuts of the movie. There's the theatrical cut and the producer's cut. I actually do prefer the producer's cut a little bit more. It's still not a good movie, but it doesn't have the flashy editing that the theatrical cut has. It gives you a little bit more of a cohesive narrative when talking about this cult aspect. However, the end is still pretty convoluted, and no matter which cut you watch, you're not left with a satisfying conclusion. So 5 and 6 could intertwine as my least favorites, but I'm never bored when I watch Halloween 6. Halloween 5, I'm very bored when watching, so yeah. Next on my list is Halloween Resurrection, the first time that this film has been anything other than the bottom of my list. And really the only reason why is because I have noticed that you can watch this film on a so bad it's good level, or at least so bad it's entertaining. Halloween Resurrection is a terrible movie, do not get me wrong, but there's just so many decisions in this movie that are just absolutely hilarious. Busta Rhymes' character. Busta Rhymes is in this movie, in case you didn't know. And yeah, that alone is all you need to know about Halloween Resurrections. Busta Rhymes is in this film, and he defeats Michael Myers at the end with Kung Fu. Just let that sink in, just in case you don't know anything about the franchise. The plot revolves around this group of college kids staying inside Michael Myers' childhood home overnight, filming this live internet horror show, and which things are all set up, of course, to, make them scared and to make it look like it's a reality show or whatever. But then Michael Myers, of course, comes home and starts killing everyone. It's another very lazy story. It's trying to cash in on the found footage crave that the Blair Witch started, which doesn't work with Halloween, so I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. And possibly the biggest sin that this movie creates is that the previous film, Halloween H2O, gave the character of Laurie Strode the ending that she deserved, the closure her character deserved. And they completely retconned it by saying, nope, Michael Myers didn't die in the end of H2O. It was an EMT worker where Michael switched his masks and coveralls all on him, so she killed that EMT worker, not Michael Myers. And it's just like, it's frustrating thinking about it. Because you had gold with that ending, and you just threw it into a pile of dog shit, is basically what it is. It's got some hilariously bad moments, but don't let that distract you with the fact that Halloween Resurrection is a really, really bad movie. But you could watch it on an entertainingly terrible level, which a lot of people do, and for some reason it worked a little bit better this time with me. So that's why I moved it up from the bottom of my list, but it's still a really terrible movie. So at number 10 on my list, I can see a lot of people disagreeing with me on this, but on my number 10 spot, I had to put Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I'm someone that used to enjoy Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I watched it for the first time back in like 2017, I think it was, and I was caught up in the whole mindset everyone had of, it was misunderstood when it came out. It works so much better as a standalone movie, not related to the Michael Myers franchise, because that's what this movie is. It doesn't take place after Halloween 2. It's a completely different movie. Michael Myers isn't in it. None of the previous characters are in it. It's a standalone movie in the Halloween franchise, because the point of this film was to have the series go in an anthology direction where each new entry was with new characters in a new setting with a new genre of horror taking place on Halloween. And when I heard about that in the movie, I thought it was pretty cool, so I checked it out, and I was so caught up with everyone loving this movie, because the movie has gotten such a big cult following that I, for some reason, enjoyed it a lot more. However, I haven't seen it since that first watching back in 2017. I watched the new 4K edition, right before Halloween Ends came out, and I honestly did not enjoy it this time around. In fact, a lot of people are going to disagree with me what I'm about to say now, but I honestly found the film kind of boring this time around. And no, it doesn't have to do with the fact that Michael Myers isn't in this movie, because a lot of people really did not like this film when it came out, simply because it's not a Michael Myers movie. That's not this movie's problem for me. The problem for me this time around is because I just thought it was pretty boring when I watched it again. And the main character, played by Tom Atkins, look, I like Tom Atkins. He seems like a really cool person, and I've seen him in other movies, and he's a really good actor, and he acts good in this movie, but I just don't see the appeal of his character, if that makes sense. A lot of people love his character. I just didn't connect with his character this time around. Performance-wise, everyone is fine in the movie. It's just that the characters themselves just didn't do anything for me. The plot of this movie alone is pretty nuts. It's pretty bonkers, and I will give the filmmakers that. They do get credit for going in a completely different direction. It's just that that direction, for me this time around, didn't fully work, and I can understand why it didn't really work back then when the film came out. It's got a big cult following, and I give it massive respect for saying, you know what, Michael Myers died in Halloween 2. Let's do something unique with this franchise that could end up being a unique horror franchise. However, it didn't work back then because it didn't have Michael Myers in it. But for me, I just didn't connect with this movie this time around, and it dropped quite a bit on my list since that first watching. That might change in the future. Maybe I need to watch it a few more times, but as of right now, I didn't really enjoy Halloween 3 when I rewatched it. Next up, we got Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, I talked about Rob Zombie's films quite a bit in my Rob Zombie ranking video, so I'll keep them brief this time around. I give Rob Zombie credit for doing something different with a character that's so iconic, and there's glimpses of Halloween 2 where I can see greatness coming in, but there's just something that just doesn't work about it. It probably has to do with the fact that it's Rob Zombie-ified, if that makes sense. You know, Rob Zombie, he puts a lot of over-the-top swearing, a lot of over-the-top white trash characters in his films. It's a very grungy, muddy, bloody, violent type movies with a lot of swearing, and that just isn't Halloween to me. But like I said, at the same time, I give him credit for doing something different with a very iconic character. It's just that a lot of those creative decisions just don't work for a Halloween film. It's a very mixed bag movie, Halloween 2, for me. There's parts that I do like, but there's parts that I just straight up hate. And the fact that this movie has a theatrical and a director's cut that's got very different parts in it, where I like certain things in the director's cut, but I like a lot more things in the theatrical cut, it's just a jumbled mess of a Halloween film. I don't hate Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Like I said, I give him credit for doing something different, but if it wasn't under Rob Zombie's direction, with his signature directing style, maybe it would have worked a little bit better, but also at the same time, maybe Rob Zombie was the only one that could have directed this movie with this script. Actually, if he would have directed it, and maybe someone else wrote the script, that probably would have worked a little bit better. But it's a jumbled mess of a movie. And yeah, if you want to know a little bit more about my thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, check out my Rob Zombie ranking video. And that goes the same thing with my next spot on the list, which is Rob Zombie's first Halloween film. Again, I give him credit for doing something different and unique. It's a very unique movie, whether you like it or not. The first half of the movie is a prequel where we follow young Michael Myers on how he became a killer, and then the second half is a remake of John Carpenter's original film. This one I think works a little bit better than Halloween 2 because it feels a little bit more like a Halloween film. It has a Halloween vibe throughout the movie. I do like the cinematography. It's a nice looking movie. However, I don't like the shaky cam whenever Michael kills anyone. You guys know I hate shaky cam. And again, I can see what Rob Zombie was going for. It's just that the script and some of his directing choices just don't fully work. Again, if you want to know more about my thoughts on Rob Zombie's Halloween, his first one as well, check out my Rob Zombie ranking video. I talked a little bit more about it than I am here, but I think that's mainly because I'm exhausted with Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. So yeah, I put them, they're kind of towards the middle of my list because I did enjoy watching them a little bit more this time around, but I gotta call it like it is, and they are more mixed bag movies for me. Next up on my list, we have Halloween H2O, a movie that I really enjoy liking. And now we're moving on from negative, mixed to negative movies to movies that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy Halloween H2O. Halloween 6, no matter which cut you watch, it left the series in a jumbled mess. And the producers fully admitted that. And the producer Malika Akkad said there was no appetite to continue that series. So let's just start fresh. And the original concept of this movie was to go straight to video and DVD. But they got Jamie Lee Curtis back to reprise her role as Laurie Strode, and it became a big 20th anniversary movie. And it's a damn good 20th anniversary movie. I really enjoy Halloween H2O. There's a lot of great sequences. It feels more like a summer horror film, and that's probably because they got Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream and Scream 2, to kind of play with the script a little bit. So at times this movie does feel more like a Scream movie than a Halloween film, but again, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I do like the characters more this time around than I did in the previous films, and the last 20 minutes are really great. Laurie going after Michael, they have their big showdown in the school. It's really great stuff. And then the ending of the movie, which Resurrection ignored, but let's forget about that for right now. The big ending where Michael is pinned against a tree and the ambulance, Laurie's all covered in blood and she's got the axe and then she cuts Michael's head off with the Halloween theme playing. It's just a really great ending and it just ends on that note. It's such a great ending. I love watching it. It's just too bad Resurrection ignored that ending, or not ignored it, but retconned it, but let's just forget Resurrection happened. It would have been a good end for Michael and Laurie, but it didn't happen, which is unfortunate. But the rest of the movie is great. I really, really enjoy H2O. At number 6, we have the original Halloween 2, another film that I really do enjoy watching. However, upon rewatches, I can understand more of the criticisms that this movie has. I do like the fact that this movie takes place the exact same night as the original film, and I do like the hospital setting where Laurie gets taken to the hospital because of her injuries in the first film. Michael then finds out that she was taken to that hospital and he stalks everyone at the hospital. It's a pretty cool location, and there are some really great sequences and pretty suspenseful sequences. However, it's not quite as well directed as John Carpenter's original film, and that's because, well, it's not directed by John Carpenter. Rick Rosenthal directed this film. And he does a pretty good job for the most part, but you could tell at times he was trying to capture that same lightning in a bottle that John Carpenter did with Halloween. And again, at times it works and at times it doesn't. And this film introduced a twist that would become synonymous with the entire franchise all the way up until the 2018 Halloween film, where it was introduced that Michael Myers and Laurie Strode are brother and sister, and that's why he's going to kill her. He's trying to kill his entire family. And that's really the whole crutch of the series. That's what the whole series has become known for after this film, up until the 2018 film where they completely retconned that. Because if you just watch the original movie, that was never the intent. It was never, in the first film, it was never Michael is going after Laurie because she's his sister. Laurie was just simply at the wrong place at the wrong time where Michael was at, and so he decides to stalk her and her friends and kill her. But no, John Carpenter felt like this movie needed a twist, and he threw that twist out there. He has since regretted that twist, and looking back on it, I can understand that. It really bogs the franchise down a little bit, and it does take away the mystique of Michael ever so slightly. But like I said, it's got a lot of fun sequences. It is well directed for the most part, just not as well directed as John Carpenter's original film. It's got great cinematography, and it's got a really great ending. So Halloween 2, it is a pretty good movie. I do enjoy it. It's just that over the years, I've come to notice more of the flaws that this film has. At number 5, I put Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This is probably my most nostalgic Halloween film because this was the first Halloween film that I watched all the way through for the first time. I remember I was in middle school and my parents were watching this film towards Halloween time, and I was getting really scared by it, and my parents were like, do you want us to turn it off because you seemed really scared by it? And I was like, no, I gotta see how it ends. But even though I was really scared of it back then, now I can watch it and I'm perfectly fine with it. But yeah, Halloween 4 is absolutely my most nostalgic Halloween film. Part 3 didn't work out for Halloween fans back then, and it didn't make as much money as Halloween 1 and 2 did, so they decided to bring back Michael Myers in a big way with a big movie, and for the most part they succeeded. There is an attempt to make this movie more in line with John Carpenter's first film, and while it doesn't quite capture that fully, I admire their effort. It is a fun Halloween film to watch. However, they couldn't get Jamie Lee Curtis back to reprise her role as Laurie, so they wrote in that Laurie died in a car crash, but she gave birth to a daughter a few years before that. So now Michael hears that he has a niece, and he stalks his way back to Haddonfield to kill his niece. The film is very simple. It's pretty much the first Halloween movie, just he's going after his niece instead of his sister. We have Donald Pleasance back as Dr. Loomis, who is great as always. Even though some of the later films aren't as good as the original film, a big bright spot is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. He is really great in every film that he's in, even though at times he's just there to be there. It's still really great to see his character. The fact that the script for this film was rushed because there was a writer's strike, and so they basically came up with the same story as the original film. They did give us some likable characters that have enough development to where it gets you to the point to where you do care. And you know, the film was shot very quickly. It is very impressive to see how well of a film this was made. You could look at it and say, oh, it's kind of cheap looking with a pretty much thrown away script, but I don't see that at all. You know, they did try to make this as good of a Halloween film as they can to bring Michael Myers back to the big screen, and in my opinion, they succeeded on it. Like I said, it's my most nostalgic Halloween film, and I love watching it every year. And here's another hot take. At number 4, we got Halloween Ends. I enjoyed Halloween Ends. I know this is a very controversial film. I don't like using that word, but it's a very divisive film. But like I said in my original review, every entry after Halloween 2 is basically labeled divisive in some way, shape, or form. I did like the bold new direction that they took with this, the fact that I had no idea what was going to happen with this film, and even when the film was unraveling, I had no idea what direction that they were going to take next. I do like all the characters in this film, and I like the new character Corey. I know a lot of people are split on Corey, but to me, they gave him a lot of good character development. The actor did a really good job, and I liked his character overall. With the little screen time that Michael has in this film, James Jude Courtney does a really great job again. He's one of my favorite Michael Myers. Seeing him more as a wounded animal, like what David Gordon Green, the director of this film, has said about him, it is an interesting take to see for Michael Myers. We're so used to seeing the same formula of Michael stalking people and killing them one by one, and then he gets blown up or shot or decapitated or electrocuted or whatever, or shot again, blown up again, whatever it is. So it was nice of them, it was nice for me at least, to see them play around with Michael Myers and play around with the formula of a Halloween film. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of people did not like the fact that this movie did that, and that's completely understandable. It's a very different Halloween film than what we've gotten before. It's one of those films where I've heard a lot of people tell me that they don't agree with my opinion and they think it's one of the worst in the series. And I can understand that. Again, it's a very different Halloween film. Personally, I did like the direction they took with it. The film has stuck with me ever since I watched it, and I have a feeling that Halloween Ends is going to gain a similar reputation that Halloween 3 had over the years. Misunderstood or not liked when it first came out, but I think over the years it's going to be more appreciated. At least that's my thoughts on it. But right now, I really enjoyed Halloween Ends, and it's stuck with me ever since I watched it. I guess my next spot at number 3 could be also considered a hot take, because at my number 3 spot, I put Halloween Kills. I've enjoyed Halloween Kills ever since it came out last year, but this year I've watched it a couple more times in preparation for Halloween Ends. And even though there's still some parts that don't work for me, I've grown to like Halloween Kills a lot more than I used to, and I liked it when I first saw it. Does the film not really have a plot? Yeah, kind of. It's just Michael killing people again. Is the evil dies tonight line overused? Yeah, it's overused a few times, but flaws and all, I don't know how best to describe it. I really enjoyed watching Halloween Kills, and it's one of my favorites now. I think Michael Myers is at his best right here. He feels completely unchained. He's just killing. He feels more brutal than he did in the 2018 film. I liked seeing the return of Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace and the nurse from the first film. I liked seeing all these characters, and I liked seeing the flashback scenes from the 1978 film. Because since this new timeline is taking place after the original film, none of the sequels, you kind of have to make up your own conclusion to what happened on that night in 1978, and I liked what they came up with. But yeah, this is another one where I can understand why some people don't like it. It doesn't feel like it has a plot at times. There's no character development. The mob mentality in this film is overplayed quite a bit, and I can understand if that's not what you wanted to see in this film. It's just that for me, this is my personal list, and I enjoyed it when I first saw it, and I like it a little bit more watching it a year later. And you can probably guess at this point what my runner-up is. It's Halloween 2018. This is a film that I will continue to defend, because even though there are parts in this film that I just don't care for all that much or could have been handled just a tiny bit better, this is still one hell of a Halloween sequel to me. The idea of retconning the fact of Michael and Laurie being brother and sister that has plagued this franchise since Halloween 2, I thought was a very smart move. If you're gonna do another sequel or another reboot of sorts to the Halloween franchise, you need to mix things up. You can't just do the exact same thing over and over again, because people are then going to say, what was the point of all that? And hence why we got Rob Zombie's films, and then in a better sense, the 2018 film. I liked all the new characters that were introduced in this film. I thought they were very likable. They were given just enough character development to where you do care about them. And I liked seeing Laurie Strode, how she's been dealing with the grief of what happened in the first film 40 years later. She's been preparing to face Michael again because she just knows that he's going to escape at some point, and she wants to be prepared for that. And I thought it was handled very well. Again, some people didn't like that. It's whatever. This is my list, my opinion on the film, and I thought they handled it very well. And I think it was great that John Carpenter finally came back to the series as an executive producer of these new films, as well as score all these new films. His score for this film in particular is still really great. Look up The Shape Hunts Allison. That is my favorite new score from John Carpenter of these films. It gives me chills every time I hear it. And I liked how this film wrapped up. It could have worked as just a one and done movie, but the ending could have also been like, well, we could do more sequels if this film was successful, and this film was massively successful. Halloween 2018 just did everything I wanted it to, and it hasn't detracted at all. It's still my favorite sequel of the franchise, and I will continue to defend it as years come. And yeah, no surprise here, my favorite in the franchise is still the original Halloween film, and it's not just my favorite film in the franchise, it's still my favorite horror film of all time. This is a horror film where I think everything that it needed to be done was done so perfectly. It's so suspenseful. It's got good characters. Do they have some bad line delivery? Yeah, whatever. It was low budget. We can give that a pass. And the fact that they pulled off all of this, it feels like a big budget movie, but it wasn't. It was very low budget for the time. But yet with good directing and good writing and good actors and a good script, it doesn't feel like a low budget movie. The mask Michael Myers wears was a William Shatner mask that they got for like $1 and they spray painted white. And it became one of the most iconic masks in horror history, in film history. This is a film that the more I look at the behind the scenes stuff, it just amazes me that the movie was as successful as it was, and it created one of the best horror scores of all time. The do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It constantly plays in my head, even when we're not around the Halloween season. There really isn't much more I can say about the original Halloween film that I've either said before or anyone else has said before. To me, it's a perfect horror movie. It's the best in the franchise, and so far, there's not been a single horror film to top it for me. It is still my favorite horror movie, and it's the best in the franchise for sure. It may have been imitated a lot in the 80s, but it was never duplicated. There's just not another film, in my opinion, especially slasher film, quite like Halloween. So that is my complete ranking of the entire Halloween franchise. Just like always, let me know your thoughts and opinions on these films down in the comment section below, and let me know how you would rank them as well. And just like always, thank you again so much for watching. I really do appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like and share it. Subscribe right here if you haven't already, and until next time guys, take care.